What are property rights? In the last video, I tried to explain the concept of self-ownership. That is, each person has exclusive domain over their own body and each person owns the result of their own actions. The basic premise is that your mind and only your mind controls your body. Does someone else have a better claim to your body than you do? You're the operator of your body. Everyone else is the operator of their own body. Therefore, you have the first and best claim to ownership over your body, and every other person has the first and best claim to ownership over their own body. Anyone's claim to ownership over your body would be, at best, secondary. The idea that each person owns themselves can be universally applied, since owning yourself does not prevent anyone else from owning themselves. The concept of self-ownership is what establishes murder, assault, rape, and enslavement as immoral. They are each violations of your right to dictate what happens to your body. Likewise, the fact that you own yourself is what establishes theft as immoral. Theft is a violation of your right to own the effects of your actions. If you do not own the results of your actions, then nothing is being violated when someone takes something you've produced and used it the way they see fit. In any event, it's actually impossible to deny the immorality of theft. We can know this by testing the validity of the claim that theft is morally good. Remember, moral rules must be universal and applied to everyone at all times and in every place. Murder, assault, rape, and enslavement all fail the test of universality, since, by definition, each of those acts would be engaging another person in the very opposite of the proposed moral action. So too, two people can't steal from each other at the same time. In order for someone to steal, there must be a victim, someone stolen from. So, in this exchange, one person would be living out the universal ideal that theft is good, while the other person would be forced into living out the immoral act of having their property taken. But the moral action can't produce in another person the very opposite of said moral action. Morality does not beget immorality. However, not stealing does not produce the opposite action. Not stealing simply leaves things the way they are. Not stealing is a negative action. It's simply allowing others to keep and use their property as they see fit. So not stealing is moral, and stealing is immoral. But how does one obtain property? The first way is through the principle of homesteading. With the exception of God, no one owns the earth or the natural resources of the planet. So using the same logic we used to derive the concept of self-ownership, we can derive the concept of the homesteading principle. Your mind controls your body, therefore you have the first and best claim to exclusive ownership of your own body. You would then be responsible for your actions. Being responsible for your actions means benefiting from your actions and incurring the negative ramifications of your actions. So if I'm able to find an unowned piece of land, anything on that land, including the land itself, can become my property if I take said unowned property and mix it with my actions. You would then be responsible for the property you've produced because you are responsible for the actions you produce using your own body. There's really no way to argue against this, since if you attempted to argue with me on this, you'd be using your argument. Your argument is a result of your exercise over your body with the natural resource of air. Plus, you'd likely be using some form of property to argue with me. At the very least, you'd likely be wearing your own clothes when arguing with me. In any event, when somebody exercises control over his body to make an argument, that means he owns his argument. It's the produce of his body. He's responsible for the produce of his actions. I have used my body and the air that I breathe to utter my argument. By manipulating a natural part of the world, air, I was able to produce something, an argument. I would therefore own the results of my talking, which again is me using my body to manipulate the natural resource of air. If I own my body because I have first and best exercise of dominion over it, then I have a right to exclusive ownership over the unowned material I've manipulated. You attempting to use my homesteaded property without my consent is like you trying to use my body without my consent. A person has first and best claim over their body, and a person who manipulates a piece of unowned material to produce something also has the first and best claim over that material. If someone insists on claiming ownership of something I've homesteaded, then it would be similar to someone attempting to violate my self-ownership. So it is just to call property that you've acquired through appropriation your property and anything you've produced using that property. Furthermore, I also have the ability to enter into an exchange with someone who has homesteaded property. I can exchange my justly acquired property with the justly acquired property of someone else if we can come to a voluntary agreement. So to summarize, if you own yourself, that is, only you can decide whether you live or die or what you do or do not do, and no one else should decide those things for you, then you should be able to completely own what you produce. You should own the results of your actions. Put simply, you own your own property, and only you can decide what you do or do not do with your property. Denial of this right means that someone else has ownership of what you possess and can dictate what you can or cannot do with it. But you see, theft is a violation of your right to own your property. There can only be the concept of theft if property rights exist. By definition, theft is the taking of something under your control without your consent, because the presupposition is that it was yours to do with as you'd like in the first place. Theft, like murder, assault, rape, and enslavement, is an act of aggression against you. It is the threat or use of force to get you to act in ways in which you did not give consent. Theft is a violation of a person themselves because property is simply the result of our time and energy. Property can only be obtained if time and energy are spent. One way that I personally obtain property is by going to work for 8 hours a day and working in exchange for money. The money represents value, which I exchange for goods and services. So theft is really the taking of your time, the time you took to homestead something, or for most of us, the time you took to acquire the value needed to enter into a voluntary exchange. If I restricted your ability to homestead or to enter into an exchange, I would be essentially cutting you off from your freedom, from your ability to live in a way you desire. Similarly, if I take your money or other property, then I'm really just robbing you of the time and energy you spent in acquiring that property. I'm stealing away a part of your life. I'm violating you. So again, property can only be justly acquired by being the first person to utilize something that is completely unowned, like an unowned piece of land, or through a voluntary exchange. In future videos, you'll see how the recognition of property rights will inform so many important issues. Whether it's the immorality of taxation, or having the right to free speech, or the right to bear arms, or the right to health care, or the right to education, or the right to housing, or whatever it might be. These things are all conditioned by property rights. So stay tuned to this YouTube channel for more videos in the future. And for more videos, click on the subscribe link below or visit youtube.com/libertyniagara and you can click on the subscribe link there. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/libertyniagara. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/libertyniag. And please visit messianicniagara.com and click on the donate link. Donating to me will allow me to build a website for Liberty Niagara. So please subscribe and share these videos with others. Thanks for watching.